So that's how you merge two photos together. The reason I chose this particular image, and along with Mother Teresa, is that one of my quotes talks about the ripples that a stone makes in the water. And I just like the idea of a skipping stone. I also like the fact that the stone's coming towards you as opposed to going away from you. I'm going to hold my thumb on the Command key next to the space bar and tap the Tab key to go back to my quotes. Then I'm going to select everything, including the quotation marks and her name, and copy it by holding the Command key down again with my thumb and tapping the letter C. To tab back over to Photoshop, I'm holding the Command key down and tapping the Tab key once more. This is how you tab back and forth and still are able to have your documents full screen. I've noticed a lot of people doing this and trying to do both and making your Photoshop file really small and then copying and pasting and copying and pasting or dragging and pasting. But this allows you, again, to go full screen on your documents. And when I want the quote or anything else from somewhere else, I can tab over to those various applications by just holding the Command key down and tapping the Tab key. So once again, I've copied this quote. When I go back into Photoshop, I'm going to select the Type tool. Notice how when I roll over this without actually clicking it, it tells you what the tool is. A little box will pop up and show you what the tool is. That's a helpful thing to know if while you're listening to these screencasts, you want to know what the tool is. So I'm going to click in here. And then I'm going to select and drag a rectangle someplace on the screen and paste the text. Notice how the text came in white. The reason it did was because when I selected the text tool, this box right here sets the text color. If when you copied that in there it was black and your background is very dark, you can change this by selecting the text here, clicking on this box, and then changing the color to something else. One of the key things that I'm looking for in this assignment, though, is the legibility of the text. That is to say, how easy it is to read the text. During our discussion today, we're going to talk about the fact that text in a meme like this is as important as the photos and the representations. So I'm going to select all of the text, and here's a Command key that allows me to enlarge the text all at the same time. I'm holding the Command and Shift keys down, and I'm tapping the period, which also has the right bracket or the right caret, the greater than symbol. And every time I tap it, it's going to increase the size of the text. So this is actually a pretty decent looking meme because it still shows Mother Teresa in the background. It does have the text, although some of it's difficult to read, and it has the stone that's causing ripples in the water. It's still kind of a mediocre or plain layout though. So one of the things I want to show you how to do is I want to show you how to separate the text out. If I click on here and duplicate this text, oops, duplicate, not throw away this text, and then I turn off this layer to preserve it, I can then go in with my text tool and I can select certain words in here. And if you want to, you can just again use the Command Shift period to enlarge the text. You can also change the font to make it a really bold text. Play around a little bit with this. This is nice because it talks about change and it emphasizes change. But it also doesn't really communicate really well what I'm hoping to communicate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this text and I'm going to cut it by holding the Command key down and tapping the X. And then I'm going to add some space in here by doing a carriage return or hitting the return key and then clicking here. So now I can start moving and isolating certain words. I'm going to click the text tool, click right here, it's going to create a new text layer, and I'm going to paste the word change in there. You can either increase the size by selecting it all and doing Command-Shift period a couple of times, or if I use this tool and Command-T, which is transform, now I can stretch it any way I want and make it larger. And rotate it or do anything else I want to do with it. So this is kind of a more effective way to do that. Just you have to remember that it's on two separate layers now. One other thing that you can do when you have white text on a dark background, I'm going to select this text here and double click outside of where the text is, because if I double click the text, it's going to change the text here, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to double click it right about here, and it's going to bring up this dialog box, which is the layer style. Watch what happens to the text when I add a drop shadow. Notice how it punches it out a little bit. You can play around with these a little bit. It's currently set to 75% opacity. Watch what happens to the text over here when I make it 100%. Just makes it a little bit darker. And it helps to make the text more legible. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. So I'm going to double click over here, click on drop shadow, change it to 100%, and click OK. This is one way to increase the legibility and also communicate the idea. I'm not totally satisfied with the way this layout looks, but let me show you what you can do with that. I'm going to do File, Save As, and I've already got it saved one time. I'm going to put a little letter next to it here. Actually, let me save this one first as my first iteration, or my first layout. I'm going to do File, Save As, and I'm just going to add a letter here, 8B. Change meme underscore first initial last name. Let me change this to A student. Remember that this is where your name goes, and then I've just added 8B to the name of the file, and I'm going to save it. So now I can select both of these areas of text by holding the Command key down and tapping this one. Now both of them are selected. I can use my Move tool, and now I can move the things around the screen. If this doesn't read still as a skipping stone, play around with the text, and every time you do it, just do File, Save As, and change this letter, and save it. That's all I'm going to do for right now, but I want you to know that what we're going to talk about today is the difference between excellence and mediocrity. Excellence is doing multiple different kinds of layouts. Mediocrity is, well, I put all the text in there, I've got both the images in there, that should be okay, right? What I want you to do is I want you to strive for excellence. Excellence includes going the extra mile. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to play around with these layouts, do multiple layouts, and don't just go, okay, I checked it all off the list. I did everything you asked me to do. So that's the difference basically between an A, which is excellent, and a B, C, or D, which is not.